welcome back to the Know Your Rights Camp podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Barbadillo.
And I'm Amir.
Today we're talking about the rights of the youth. We talk about knowing your rights, but we don't often emphasize how important it is for the youth to know their rights. And today we have a special guest, a youth advocate himself, and now an advocate for the youth, Cayden Brown.
Thanks for inviting me, guys.
Thanks for joining us, Cayden.
Absolutely.
I want to read this young man's bio because he's a very accomplished person who's done stuff all over the globe. So Cayden Brown is a 19-year-old child rights defender, juvenile justice advocate, or as I call it, a knucklehead defender like myself, right? An author from Detroit, featured in Forbes magazine and Time, and what's called the world's most influential juvenile justice advocate by ABC News. Cayden has spoken at the United Nations, advised the U.S. president, and earned his first legal credential from Harvard Law School. As executive director of Trespass Project, he leads a global team of pro bono attorneys making legal information accessible to young people worldwide. His debut children's book, The Kid in a Courtroom, gives voice to children navigating family legal systems, the resource he wishes he had while he was growing up. Currently, The Kid in a Courtroom is the Amazon #1 bestseller, and we have the book. Hear more about it today. You can see it. Thanks for joining us, Cayden.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So tell us a little more about yourself. How did you get into this work? I imagine you started just a few years ago as a teenager, So how did it come to you? How'd you arrive?
That's a long answer because I know that I'm young and I haven't spent that many years on this earth, but a large part of my life has been spent in a courtroom. And so what happened is when I was 6 years old, and this is the story of The Kid in the Courtroom and why I chose to write it. When I was 6 years old, I was one day thrust into this very complex legal matter. And we recognize that sometimes the first interaction that young people have with the legal system is not when they are in trouble, but it's through family court.
Right.
It's when their parents are navigating a divorce. The divorce rates are sky high in this country.
Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of the young people who are encountering what a judge is, what custody is, what a court is,
right, and
is
sometimes
in that way.
And they don't have a voice often in that
Correct.
process, right?
And that was my story. I was being shipped back and forth between my parents' homes, and I went home one day and I asked my mother, and this is illustrated in the book also. I asked my mother, why is this happening? And why do I have no say in what's going on when it impacts me most? And her response was the 5 scariest words I've ever heard. This was the judge's decision.
Wow.
And so it was in that moment at 6 years old that I decided I need to become a judge.
Yeah.
And so that's the journey I've been on, participating in these different legal venues is to become somebody who recognizes the voice of a young person as important. And whatever medium that I'm performing in a courtroom, whether that be in a defender space or in eventually a judgeship, making sure that those voices are heard and protected.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of adultism in the court system where we really disenfranchise young people. They're not allowed to speak on their behalf, but oftentimes we don't empower them to be a part of the process. So you're saying you've been a judge as well, working on or overseeing those cases.
That's eventual.
Yeah.
That's my goal. That's my end goal.
Nice. But you've been in court proceedings and different things representing
I work with
young
judges
people
really well.
Yeah. So tell us a little more about that as well.
Yeah. So there's this really, really incredible program that I've now become an unpaid sponsor for. Okay. Because I advocate for this idea. It's called Teen Court.
Okay.
And it's this idea where we recognize that peer pressure is as a juvenile defender, peer pressure is one of the main leading causes for young people getting in trouble.
Right.
They are surrounded by opportunity and misguidance. And so Teen Court operates on this idea of peer-driven justice efficacy, where, okay, we understand peer pressure is this influential. Let's use it in its positive light. And let's use it to allow young people to adjudicate these cases for themselves and see what outcomes might come from that. And what we've seen is that a 90% success rate in recidivism, in preventing recidivism. 90% of the people who come through teen court don't
Mhm.
return.
Wow.
And so if we're seeing that peers can effectively adjudicate and deal with these matters, then that goes forward for the thesis that, young people can participate
Right.
in these legal systems and it be successful.
That's so interesting because technically the court system is supposed to work the way that you're
Exactly.
describing it.
Exactly.
And I think it's kind of like flipping quote unquote logic.
Mhm.
Not that the logic was right on its head, is that the adults know what they're doing and so
Correct.
it should work. But actually, because the youth are kind of a little bit more pure and just connecting point A to point B and not biased, the system is actually working.
There's
Mhm.
empathy.
Yeah.
Right.
There's
Because we see this divide in the courtroom where, an adult has these different connotations
Mhm.
associated with youth, period.
Right.
Mhm.
And it's like these young people these days, right?
Right.
And so
Mhm.
when that is the energy coming into a courtroom where we need empathy and understanding
Mhm.
and social context,
Yeah.
young people are able to provide that because I'm a young person too. I understand what it's like to
Mhm.
be a young person now,
Mhm.
Exactly.
not
Right.
45 years ago.
Right.
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 But what is it like to be a young person today? And what comes with that when we're talking about ending up in a courtroom eventually?
Right. And you always hear about like the jury of your peers or just in adult proceedings,
Mhm.
the right to have people who
Yeah.
are around your
Who
age
understand
who
you.
understand you. But
And so why are young people not afforded that same liberty?
exactly.
Why do we young people not have the benevolence of the court?
Right.
Mhm.
And so I've become a very strong advocate for teen court-centric model implementation on a national scale.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I mean 90% recidivism reduction rate, like in our traditional
Yeah.
juvenile court system, juvenile injustice system,
Yeah.
as some people call
Exactly, as
it's
I do.
It's
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
More than
Yeah.
half of the youth actually return into
Correct.
that system. There was
Mhm.
one study that found actually youth who are incarcerated are actually more likely
Way
to
likely.
return.
From the from the
Yeah.
sentencing project.
If you
Yep.
had
Mhm.
two youth, if both of us got in trouble,
Yep.
and one of us was sent to a juvenile detention center, juvenile prison, juvenile camp, whatever they want to call it, and one of us wasn't,
Mhm.
the person that's more likely to reoffend was the person who was sent there, because once you're there, you create this criminalized mentality. You
Correct.
might learn some other things that will
Correct.
bring you back in. So it sounds like this teen court system is a way for peers to create justice, and be a part of that justice process. And it's working damn good.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Not to mention, it also just seems like in this, like there's this eyes wide open, able to step into each other's shoes and understand, right? Which is what's
Mhm.
generally missing from the injustice system.
At
Yeah.
large.
So with that in mind, when you're writing this book, what did you want like the parent, because a parent's going to read this too, the parent to get
Mhm.
out of this and the child to get out of this?
Outstanding question. So it was interesting because I've had several conversations
Mhm.
about, the way that this book was formed and
Mhm.
why I birthed it the way that I did. And it was very important to me that I've done a lot of institutional, I'm at the White House, I'm at the UN, all of those things that you listed. But what am I doing for the people that I serve intimately?
Right.
What resource can I give them that is tangible?
Mm.
And so it was very important to me that I write a children's book that and deliver a resource into this world that is for the kid I used to be.
Okay.
This is the book I needed at 6 years old. I needed somebody to come tell me that what I was experiencing wasn't right.
Right.
That being silenced in a matter that affected me most out of everyone, I should have had a voice in, the most voice in.
Yeah.
And so that silencing grew this seed in me that has now bloomed and blossomed into this thing that can hopefully help other people. But I made sure that I wanted it to be written in a way that was digestible. This goes
Yes.
for the mission of my organization, the Trespass Project. Our mission is literally to advance legal literacy across the globe. And so what better way than to do that
Yeah.
in the form of a children's book about the legal system. And so I really wanted to capture the feeling. What was most important to me is to capture what it felt like to be in this tiny little body surrounded by the magnitude of the courtroom and the decisions that came therefrom. Like I wanted to capture that and to display it visually. And I always swear that illustrations in this book are more so for the adults than they are for the children, because the words are written in a way children can get.
Right. That's what
The-
surprised me about the book. I'm
Yeah.
looking through it. It's an actual children's book with the
Yes.
words, not because sometimes they'll say, "Oh, it's a children's book," but you'll see
Essays.
Like an essay, like
Yeah.
an essay, like a 100-word essay per page.
Yeah.
Correct.
But
No,
this is just
it
a
was
few
very
words.
important to me that
Yeah.
this book would be something that they could read and understand for
I
themselves.
think the page we're just on
Mhm.
captured what you're talking about. It's like all these
Yeah.
people literally talking above
Mhm.
the child, and that's such a
Oh, yeah.
great visualization.
Oh yeah. And so the illustrations though were more so for the adults, like I
Mhm.
said, because I wanted adults who put their children into these situations
Mm.
to understand what they're doing.
Right.
I wanted the judges who are deciding cases on behalf of children like Justice,
Mhm.
children like me,
Mhm.
what it feels like to be on the receiving end of that stick.
Mm. So Justice is the name of the main character.
Justice is the
I
main
love
of the
that.
Would you mind
character.
reading just the first page? I love it because it's not just a children's book; it's poetic.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. Absolutely. The opening page says, Justice felt small. Smaller than the room around him. Smaller than the choices that were being made.
Wow.
And there was nothing truer.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing truer than that statement.
Right.
There were so many things happening around me that I was not included in. And that built a lot of issues I've had to break down in my adulthood,
Mm-hmm.
such as people pleasing,
Yeah.
Right.
such as learning how to use my own voice. I mean, we hear, specifically people of color, we know that children are always told, you're to be seen and not heard.
Right.
Mhm.
You are, you're a child, stay in a child's place.
Right.
And so
Mhm.
we're being told that it is not our business
Right.
Right.
to negotiate on our own account.
And it's
Right.
literally about you. Like
Mhm.
this whole court proceeding is
Right.
about you and
It's
the child.
about
But
you.
what the child has to say and feel and articulate, they literally don't want to hear until 12 years old, if not older in some
Correct.
places.
And even in those cases, it's still,
It's not a tangible rule.
exactly.
My parents got divorced, and
It's
I had
kind of
to
metaphoric
get
and
asked, like,
symbolic.
it's also weird as a child. Like my parents were divorced, and they asked me like, "Who do you want to go with?"
Mhm.
No prep, no
Yep.
whatever. They just put me in front of a judge, and
Yeah.
Wow.
I was lucky enough that both my parents were like, "This doesn't seem right. Like,
Okay,
let's
yeah.
whatever." But what if, this is just an anecdotal. Like, you just happen to sit down with two people, and
Yeah.
one other person had somewhat of an experience as a child, and that's just
Mhm.
it. Just kind of shows, right, how prevalent this is, but we don't hear about it because children aren't supposed to say anything.
Because children aren't supposed to say anything. Because we've been told to sit and be quiet.
Right.
And that is that's a spread in the book. It is literally,
Wow.
the courtroom was tall and cold, and justice was just a small part of the room. Sit here and be quiet
Wow.
while listening
Mm-hmm.
to decisions be made about what is happening
Right.
to me.
Yeah.
And so there are adults that are still suffering from what happens to kids like this.
Oh, yeah.
There are adults who are sitting in situations in their lives where they feel like they can't escape because they've been conditioned as a child to not speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really, really want to break that down here
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
in childhood.
Yeah. No, that's creative. I never really thought of Know Your Rights as being delivered through a children's book. But I think that's such
Yeah.
a really effective, impactful way to get them engaged, have them singing along and different things with their rights,
Yeah.
But
Oh, it's been so beautiful. I've been able to tour for the past month and a half now at different
Nice.
elementary schools and, go read this book to children. And the engagement one is beautiful, but the response has been humbling.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognize 6-year-old me in them, and them coming up to me and telling me my parents are going through this. And
Right.
the amount of donated copies I've given out just because
Beautiful.
you need this book.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It has been the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, I was just going to say, statistically, since I guess over half of weddings end in divorce, especially here in California.
Yeah.
But, almost half of the children you could be reading to could be dealing with this or has seen something or might actually encounter it. So it's a very comforting thing. Because sometimes when you're navigating a situation like this,
You
right?
feel alone.
You feel alone. It feels so foreign. They're using
Yeah.
big words.
Yeah.
No one's taking the time to actually explain shit to the kid, right?
Correct.
The whole time.
Mhm.
I mean, any kid or young person navigating the court system. Like I even remember, as a juvenile person who was arrested in the courtroom, they're using all these big words. They're explaining things. You have the, public defender who might break some stuff down to you. You have the prosecutor you see is clearly not on your side, and the judge is saying whatever, and no one's pausing to actually explain what's going on, because it's about you, but it's so without you, know? So this is a really powerful tool to empower some children with the knowledge about what's actually happening.
Thank you.
To mention, we talk about this all the time, like the flip side of knowing your rights is trying to break down sort of the gatekeeping that happens. And the legal system is inherently flawed and biased and racist and gatekeeps, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all of us have gone through law school. I already consider you like an attorney at this point because you have the expertise. But it's just the idea that like the basis of the legal system is to gatekeep knowledge of the law.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so if adults don't even know it, how are children supposed to know it? And also, I don't blame parents because sometimes the parents don't even know what's going on themselves.
True.
And so like that's a great resource, just because I walk into a courtroom and I went to law school and I can't even remember what happens. And so I can't imagine like being a child. And I think it's also a very important time to realize that that's time when children are sponges. Even if they can't articulate what's happening, they're absorbing it.
Yes. I think part of the biggest issue, and something I work to confront daily and demystify and debunk, is this notion that young people are not equipped enough to understand the complexities of what's going on. They are. We just need to digest it for them. Because young people internalize information, period. It's just, how are they? Maybe they're not understanding those high intellectual words that you're using and all of that legal jargon, but they know what the heck it means. And they know how it feels that one day I lived here and now I have 2 houses. They know what that is. They know what's going on, even if you're not speaking to them. So break it down for them, help them understand, and bring them along in the journey that is literally reshaping them.
Yeah.
And another thing I love that we've had a lot of overlap with the juvenile delinquency system in this conversation about the family court. And that was intentional too. I love that you use the word poetic, because everything I do is poetic.
Yeah, beautiful.
But this cover is intentionally drawn the way it was by this beautiful woman from Malaysia. She did an outstanding job. Her name is Sulin Peng. I was absolutely not willing to negotiate on how this cover was going to look.
Yeah.
And the point of this cover is to catch people in their own lie that they tell themselves, which is, when most people see this cover, when I'm just traveling, I'm anywhere, they're like, wow, a kid should never be in a courtroom. And I'm like, really? I agree. And so it's a way to kind of trap them in that, to get them to start considering what it means to be a kid in a courtroom in both systems. Whether it be your parents are getting a divorce and you feel, oh, that poor kid, he shouldn't have to be there. But the same type of consideration for a child who lands in a courtroom for another reason.
Exactly.
Do we still have empathy?
Right. That's
important.
Great question.
So tell us more about what you did with the United Nations, actually, right? Because the United States is one of the only countries that has this juvenile justice or injustice system that we talk about, where, you have 15-year-olds doing life in prison in some ways, and you can be sentenced to so much as a teenager. And other countries have systems that understand children are developmentally growing and can be redirected and stuff, whereas we have a more punitive system.
Correct. So with the United Nations, it was an incredible experience, and I'm getting ready to go back with them, this time in Geneva, Switzerland.
Wow.
But when I was 17 years old, I was not an adult yet, and I was the youngest person in the room, which is so ironic because it was the youth day.
Yeah. Wait a second. Hold on. You were the youngest person?
I was the youngest person in the room at 17. And I was the youngest youth peace panelist. There were 5 of us from different nations, some from Mexico, some from the United States, some from, I believe, Dubai, it might have been. There were several of us. There were 5 of us. And I was the youngest, and we were called to address United Nations Security Council Resolution 2250, which basically mandates that youth should have participation and be involved in decisions about global peace and security.
Okay.
And so this was a time, 2023, we were witnessing the antithesis of global peace nor security. We were witnessing so much destruction, genocides. We were witnessing all of these things crumbling. And so the United Nations called on these young people to speak about why it is important that young people have inclusion in decisions that do affect them. Again, it's an example. It's just another example of this large umbrella idea that people should be included in decisions about their lives.
Right.
Duh.
Really?
Yeah.
I say this all the time. I said it in my recent TED Talk. Like, we're witnessing men make decisions about what women can do with their bodies.
Right.
We're witnessing adults make decisions about laws that affect young people who are having to jump out of their classroom windows
Yeah.
because gun violence tears through this country. All of the people responsible for making the choices about the conditions in which we live aren't anywhere near the damage.
Right.
And so my call to the world is to reframe this positional power to where the people who are going to be affected by these things are in the head of the control room. And that's not a big ask. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not.
And that's a shame that you're in this international youth group and you're the youngest person at age 17. You're 1 year away from being an adult at the time.
Yeah.
I know.
But still.
I try to communicate that to people, like this idea of what youth is. It again just goes to show, like, that was an exception that I was able to go at 17 years old. I had to pass through a lot of hoops and they almost didn't let me into the room. That's a whole nother story. But it's just like that's an example of, you're calling for young people to come forward, but it's performative because what about the actual children?
Right.
And so I'm somebody who actually fights for true children,
Right.
like their voices to be heard, and not in a performative, I have proximity to you.
Right.
No, where are the kids?
Yeah. And speaking of that, fighting for the rights of children, what are some policy changes you would like to see here, in the USA? I know internationally is a whole nother thing, but if you could change both in, the family court system, also in the juvenile justice system, like what are some changes you would make?
Excellent question. So the Trespass Project has worked on this for about 3 years now.
Nice.
And I recently lectured this at Harvard Graduate School of Education.
Okay.
And it is this idea that teen court-centric models, we trace the birth of the juvenile court. Where did it come from? How did juvenile justice operate at first? And we trace it to where we are now. And we see that we are in effect still doing a lot of the same outdated and not based on evidence type of practicing.
Right.
And so we're looking at a teen court-centric model, which has a 90% success rate in reducing recidivism, making sure young people don't return to the courtroom, which is the goal, right?
Right.
Not for some. Not for some.
Yeah, I was going to say, you probably heard of the Kids for Cash scandal that happened in Philadelphia, where a judge was getting, tens of thousands of dollars to send kids away.
Exactly. And that's how the system works. And so the implementation and law that we would like to get passed and see happen is, we recognize that teen court-centric models are the most effective response and intervention for first-time misdemeanor offenses.
Okay.
And so this is the biggest pool of kids who return.
Right.
It is their first time. They've never made a mistake before. And they end up committing this low-level petty crime, but then they get institutionalized and end up escalating those crimes further.
Right.
And so we can stop that trajectory now and implement the teen court-centric model as the standard for kids who commit first-time low-level offenses. We will see a large reduction in the amount of juvenile and, I would say, adults.
Right.
I was just gonna say, we don't need to, relegate this just to the youth.
Absolutely.
I think what I just have to say, what I admire the most about this is, like, again, not to sound like the person that's constantly poo-pooing the legal system, but I think the problem we have is that people treat, like, the law as stagnant. Like, it is what it is. It doesn't change and nothing's dynamic about it. And I think what I really like about this teen-centric, am I saying that right? Teen-centric model is that it's dynamic. You're actually reacting to, like, what works. Like, what is our goal and how do we get there?
Yeah,
right? Whereas now it's sort of like, this is how it works. So it must have been right all those years ago
absolutely.
when we know it wasn't right all
Right.
those years ago.
Yeah. I mean, are there any states that require teen court? I only know certain
It's
jurisdictions,
never required.
cities,
Never
some school
required.
districts, but it's like no states
Never
and damn sure our
required.
federal government.
Even in the practice in which I participate in,
Oh, it's optional. Yeah.
it is a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
And I argue, this is my argument, my thesis is
Mhm.
that we are denying young people their constitutional right.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Yeah.
trace the McKeever case, right? Which is, where the Supreme Court said young people shouldn't be guaranteed a jury of their peers because
Right.
we don't want to make the court as adversarial for them. But it is.
Right.
For sure.
What happens when youth get charged as an adult? They
Right.
go before an adult jury
Right.
who don't understand them. And so we need to adapt based on the current realities of what juvenile justice looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I know there's some good news they're celebrating in New York. I just heard it this morning that part of Rikers Island is being shut down, one of the detention centers
Yeah,
there.
a few of the ICE detention centers are shut down too.
Yeah, so it's progress happening.
Yeah.
But New York, we talked about this before, but Khalif Browder, I think he was 19, he was your age, 19 years old, had a backpack that they thought was stolen and ended up dying actually in one of those facilities, unfortunately, because these facilities are trauma-inducing facilities with, whether it's staffing issues, drugs on the inside, violence, and other things not regulated, but also just neglect. People are actually dying in them. And we can have alternatives like teen court where, peers can help facilitate justice for the person and, the young person could stay out and see things and those work better.
And it also encourages civic engagement
Yeah.
of the other peers who are guiding them through this process.
Mhm.
They're participating in a legal platform without having to, be a defendant
Right.
or be in a jury pool that they don't want to be.
Well, I was just gonna say, and I'm gonna keep it buck 150. I think they should get paid for that too. The young people that
Trust
are
me, I
doing that
believe in
work.
paying.
Okay, yeah. All right, that's what I was gonna say.
Baby steps though. 'Cause
baby steps.
We need to get this implemented first.
Yeah, they should get paid, get stipends, or
Yes.
because you have some young people who want to go to law school, want to go on and
Exactly.
do that sort of stuff. So this should be a career pipeline. Yeah, maybe they first start as intern, volunteer hours, which they have to do in high school. But like after they do it for a while, let's pay them because you're paying that prosecutor, you're paying that public defender.
And
not a lot.
we break that.
Yeah,
we
I mean,
break that down. The difference between how much money teen court saves a probation period. Thousands can be spent on probation
Right.
periods. And so when you use teen court centric models where it's built on volunteerism, we save so much money and resources that could be placed into training
Right.
or any other thing.
Yeah.
Right. So you were pretty successful in teen court, and I heard you never lost a case and was, the beast, huh?
Listen, I had a pretty strong passion.
Nice. Can you describe the process when a young person goes through the teen court system? So it's like, they get in trouble and then it's deferred, at the early level and, redirected.
Which I have a problem with because there is opportunity for bias to encroach.
Yeah.
If it is
someone chooses which ones go and which
Right.
ones don't
correct.
go.
And so that's why it needs to become codified and protected as the standard mechanism. You know, if you are eligible, it should automatically trigger you to not have to go to jail.
Right.
Yeah.
But the process works just as you said. It's a deferral process as it currently stands. And the prosecutor has wide discretion over who gets it and who doesn't
Oh,
based
wow.
on
That's problematic.
based on history. Do you have prior offense?
Oh,
If you
no.
don't,
Yeah.
most of the time they will let you come through. And then the people like myself who are representing these people are appointed to these cases just like a public defender
yeah.
role.
That's cool.
So it's just carved out for this specific purpose.
You've sort of heard Amir and I sort of make noises essentially when we hear about the role of an adult in these teen-centric court systems. And so, we're sort of acknowledging that there are adults in the room. There are more than enough adults in the room, and they seem to have all of the decision. But I think we got to forget the parents. They also, while they may have a little bit more of a voice, they probably don't know their rights. For your parents, if I may ask, what was their reaction to this? Because this is your memory, but it's also theirs.
It is. And that's a great question. There have been a lot of conversations And my parents knew I was going to write this book because there's always been this unacknowledged, there's always been this unspoken yet acknowledged and understood understanding that why I do the work I do is because of what happened to me at 6. We've all known it and never had to say it. And with the release of this book, it became very explicit. And we've had conversations about, what happened to me at 6 years old and how all of that felt. And I recognize that, like you were saying, my parents were doing the best that they could at the time. They're in the middle of their own war.
Right.
And so it is easy and it is a common thing for parents to forget precisely how this is going to make a child feel. And I think further than that, because I know that my parents considered my emotions, they might not have known the extent of how far I internalized it. But I think what's even further than that for most parents is not that they don't know how their child is going to feel, but they choose silence rather than addressing what is going on in the belief that the child will forget or they don't understand. You know what I'm saying? We're just going to not acknowledge this issue. And like we were saying earlier, kids are smarter than that.
Yeah.
I know that one day my parents lived together and the next day he had his own house and I didn't see him for 2 years. I picked up on that.
Right.
And so what I encourage all parents to do through this book is to have those tough conversations because the child is telling their own. And it might not be right.
Right.
They might not have the language yet. So you need to break it down to them because they might grow up resenting you for something that might not be the full truth.
Right.
And there's an element of protecting kids, absolutely. But sit down and have conversations with your kids instead of letting those thoughts fester about what is happening. And if I can, I'd like to flip to the dedication page that I wrote to my parents. And they had no idea. I didn't let them see a smidgen of ink from this book until it was like out. And I was like, too late. It's too late. It's out. But I wrote this on the dedication page. It goes, "For the kid I used to be, and for the ones who still are, may this book remind you that your voice deserves our ears. With all that I owe to Jamie Rose and Jacob Brown," which are my two parents. And I mean, when I first went to figure out what I was going to write on the dedication page, and then this is what came, I just was sobbing. The whole room was flooded. But it is, I think, the biggest nod and circle closing for what happened. It was very cathartic to be able to write this book and acknowledge that truth. And to know that my parents would support me telling the story. While still protecting all of us,
Right.
But being able to help other people through what happened to us and them being, courageous enough to say, you know what, son, yes,
Right.
tell the world.
Yeah. That's really, you're personifying the healing power of storytelling. It's like you have this experience that a part of you almost suppressed or didn't address fully. And through writing and sharing the story, through this advocacy, you're kind of like no different from Batman or Spider-Man, where they all have this like traumatic childhood experience.
Oh, truly.
And it turns them into, a fighter.
It's your origin story.
Yeah, that's your origin
It absolutely
story.
is. And I've said to a judge wrote this for me because he got to review the book and he's the one that I did teen court with. And he wrote, "You went from being one of the most silenced voices in the courtroom to one of the strongest I've ever seen."
Wow.
I love that.
True.
And that is where it ends.
And it's a reaction. You claiming your power, you finding your power now. You're an incredible person, but it was triggered by this thing where they took away your power, and that helped you search, seek, find, magnify, amplify your power.
And now I'll never shut up.
Now you'll never shut up.
Please don't ever.
No.
Please don't ever.
And that's one of the last questions we have for you is like, what's next for Cayden Brown? Because you've already done so much, right?
Correct.
Like, I mean, you can't even have a legal drink yet. But you spoke at the United Nations and done different things, advised presidents. So what are you thinking? Or how is your work going to continue in the future?
So when I received that question, I don't allow myself to answer it.
Okay.
Because what I have found is that every time you make a plan, the man upstairs is
Yes.
laughing.
Yeah.
None of what has happened in my life has been according to my plan because I understand that my steps are ordered. I am obedient to what he has for me.
Okay.
And in this moment specifically with this book, this is
Mhm.
3 years of labor and love.
Right.
And that's just the production runway. I mean, this book was 19 years in the making, right? In this moment, I refuse to think about what's coming or what else I can do
Mhm.
besides be
Wow.
for the kids who need me now,
Right.
for the kid I know I was and I wish would come through the door and hand me this book.
Hmm.
I truly searched for this book when I was 6 years old and a kid going through this. I said, is there anyone I can talk to who understands this? And so in this moment, my assignment is to just be present for the kids who I'm delivering this book in the hands of.
Powerful.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I also would like to say thank you for sharing that with us because some of those, we're talking about the book, but the book is personal to you. So
Very.
thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you for the platform.
Yeah. And thank you for this gift to the world, to the
Yeah.
children's book world, to the Know Your Rights world, So
To the adult world.
to the adult world. Yeah. No,
Deep
for real.
right.
This is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks again for this gift to the world that's going to empower children all over the country and really do something that, like you said, being the voice that you wish you would have heard. Keep up the great work,
Thank you for
Cayden.
having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Know Your Rights Camp podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media at Your Rights Camp and on YouTube at Know Your Rights Camp.